Okay, so we're on Daf Yudched with the bottom three lines. In the article, it's 18B-3. We're dealing with Kohen Gadol, and Kohen Gadol, whose brother was Nifter, and he left an almona, a widow, without any children, and she is now up for Yibum or Chalitza. The Mishnah said that a Kohen Gadol is allowed to be part of the Chalitza ceremony, as well as if the Kohen Gadol's wife if the Kohen Gadol himself was Nifter without any children, the wife would be able to go through the Chalitza process. That's what we did say, and we said that the Kohen Gadol could not marry a widow. He cannot do Yibum. He could not do Yibum. He could not marry his brother's widow. Now, the Gemara starts off, Kapasik v'tanoi. When they taught this, that a Kohen Gadol cannot marry his brother's Yibum, Loi shana min ha-erusin, v'lo shana min ha-nisuin. It didn't make a difference whether she was an almana from erusin or an almana from nisuin. What's the difference between erusin and nisuin? So today you really don't see that difference because both the real engagement, Harei Mekudeshetli, is done under the chuppah, and then the bracha of the mater al arayos that are under the chuppah. So the whole process of engagement and chuppah are all done together today. In the olden days, it wasn't that way. You would get engaged in the Talmudical times. You do erusin, and that's when they gave the ring, whatever it was, and this is now they're considered legally married. However, they're not allowed to live together as husband and wife yet. Meaning that she would not have been with him yet because they were only at an engagement period. Nisuyin is when the chuppah was done, which is usually about 12 months after the engagement period. Now, the Gemara is saying that it doesn't make a difference if she is an almana, a widow, from the erusin stage, meaning that she never was with her husband, or even if she was an almana from her marriage stage when she was with her husband. Now, the Gemara says, now, all makes sense that when she was actually married to her husband, that's the reason why the Kohen Gadol cannot do Yibum with her. Why? Because we have an aseh and a lo ta'aseh. What's the aseh and lo ta'aseh? The aseh is ki im betula me'ameh yikach. The pasuk says that a Kohen Gadol has to marry a betula. Then the pasuk also says, "Almana lo yikach." I'm paraphrasing the pasuk. You're not allowed to take a widow. So you have a mitzvah, an aseh, to marry a betula, and you have an lo ta'aseh, do not take an almana. So the Gemara comments on the top of 19A1. The ein aseh. Now, the mitzvah of doing yibum is an aseh. Go ahead and make a mitzvah yibum. Ein aseh doche lo ta'aseh ve'aseh. It doesn't push away a mitzvah that's a ta'aseh and a lo ta'aseh. Okay? You have on one side, you have the mitzvah of Yibum, and the other side, you have the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an almana, and he has to marry a betula. And if she has been married already, she's not a betula, and she's now an almana. So you have two an aseh v'lo ta'aseh. The aseh cannot push away these two, so he cannot do Yibum to her. Now, Ela min ha'erusin amai. But if she was just engaged, why can't he actually do Yibum with her? Yavo aseh v'yitche lo ta'aseh. Because what do we have? We have the aseh of Yibum, go marry your brother's wife. And all we have is the lo ta'aseh, which is that she is an almana. You're not allowed to take an almana. So you have an aseh, can push away a lo ta'aseh. That's usually everyone in the Torah. If you have an aseh can push away a lo ta'aseh. Now, the aseh of marrying a betula still exists because she was only engaged. She was only at the stage of erusin, not at nisuyin. So you don't have the issue of her not being a betula. So maybe the Kohen Gadol should be allowed to do Yibum with her because it's an aseh of Yibum that pushes away the lo ta'aseh of not taking an almana. The Gemara answers the reason why it's actually the oraita level. The Kohen Gadol would be allowed to do that. But the Rabbanan asked it. Why? Gezerah bi'ah rishona atu bi'ah shni'ah. Which is the asay? When is the asay of Yibum? The asay of Yibum is the first time that he's with his brother's almana, with his brother's widow. That is the mitzvah that's the asay of Yibum. After that first relationship that they were together, after the first time they had relations, the second time, third time, there's no more mitzvah asay. There's no asay of Yibum. There's no more. The mitzvah asay of Yibum only exists the first time that they have relations. As such, if you would come to her again, now there would be no asay, and you still have the lo ta'aseh of not allowed taking an almana, taking a widow. So the lo ta'aseh remains intact after the first biyah, whereas the asay no longer exists after the first biyah, and therefore, because the brother made a gezerah that he shouldn't do yibum with her, because afterwards, after the first time they're together, he's not allowed to be together with her ever again. Tananami hachi. Im kadmu uvalu bia rishona. If the Kohen Gadol didn't listen and he went ahead and he did bia with her and he was with his brother's widow, and meaning from Erison, so she was never actually with his brother. She was just from Erison, from an engagement period. Kanu, they're considered legally married because he did yibum, which is an asay that pushed away the lo ta'aseh even almona. And however, the asuli kaiman b'viashniya, he would not be allowed to have biashniya with her. And so the Rabbanan made a gezerah because of that Kohen Gadol should never do yibum, not from Erison stage, not from and definitely not from the Nisuyin stage. Yes, that's right.
They're gonna force him to get divorced.
At this stage, she's legally married. If she wants to ever have relations again or something like that, she would need to get divorced and go somewhere else. I don't know if they would force her to get divorced.
No, not force him.
Yeah, I don't know if they would do that to make him do that. I don't know.
Because he's still gonna have the status of Kohen Gadol.
Yeah, he would still have the status of Kohen Gadol, right?
So I have several questions.
Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, do you hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so several questions. First, this is in the case where the brother of Kohen Gadol died without kids, right?
Yeah.
So he married her. The idea of Yibum, I thought, is it's still active until the baby is born, no?
What do you mean?
Because the reason why the younger brother is marrying the wife of his older brother, because they didn't have any kids.
Any brother. It doesn't have to be older or younger. Any brother.
Say it again.
It doesn't have to be an older or a younger brother. Any brother.
Oh.
If a brother's wife was nifter, right, without having kids, she falls to Yibum. It could be an older brother, a younger brother, it could be any brother.
Okay, but she falls into Yibum, but doesn't she have to give birth? Because that's the whole idea, to kind of continue the
You're saying,
of the mother.
Right, the point that the Torah says is that he should build her family and build his family. Right, so that's probably why they're Rabbanan made a gezerah. Because, you could be with her the first time, but who guarantees you're going to have a child after the first time? So they made a gezerah, don't be with her at all. Yeah. Yeah, that's why they're Rabbanan made a gezerah, that he can't be there. He can only be with her one time, technically speaking, on a technical level. Because of that, the Rabbanan said, don't be with her at all. Don't do yibum with her. You have to give her chalitza. Yeah.
Okay, so only in the case of Kohen HaGadol, he is...
Right, this is a Kohen Gadol. This is the case of a Kohen Gadol. Because he cannot be with her as she's an almana, but the asay will push away the lo ta'aseh just for the first time. And we don't want that. So...
and him being the older brother, what if he has another brother? Can he automatically...
He can be the younger brother. Doesn't make a difference.
So if he's a Kohen Gadol, but he has other siblings, why does he have to go through him? I mean,
maybe there was no sibling. Maybe there was no other sibling. He was the only brother. Maybe he was the only brother.
So this is the only case where we do chalitza automatically.
Right. So you would have to do chalitza. Right. When it comes to the Kohen Gadol. Now, nowadays, today, I think most of the Jews in the world today don't perform yibum. They just do chalitza. was a story back in the day in Eretz Yisrael. The Yemenites had a minhag to still do Yibum, but the Ashkenazim didn't want them to do Yibum, and they went to Chavovadia. Chavovadia said no, they can still do Yibum even today. But most Jews don't practice that way. Most people just do Chalitza. One of the reasons is that when you marry her, you really have to have like pure intentions, and people are not very pure, and it's not simple thing. So therefore, today most people just do Chalitza.
But the price of Chalitza has a negative connotation attached to it.
Yeah, it does.
Why should he be forced to it?
Today, or the Kohen Gadol?
I mean, both.
Kohen Gadol, he does it. We don't say it's too much of it. We don't say it's too embarrassing. And for us, we have no other choice for what to do with her. She needs to be able to remarry. You need to do something. Chalitza is the only process that is legally binding them. Okay.
Thank you.
Met lo met. If a Kohen Gadol had a family member that died on him, so he has a family member that's dead. So now he cannot become a tamei to him. Tana Rabbanon, you have a pasuk that says, "In the Migdash lo yetze." He's not allowed to go out of the Migdash. Lo yetze imahen. So Rameir in the Mishnah said he cannot go out with them. Aval yotzehu acharehen. He goes out after them. Ketzad hen nichsin hu nigle hen nigle hu nichseh. Meaning they walk in front of him. The whole procession, the funeral procession, is about a block ahead of him, and they go past one block. They turn. He waits for them to turn. He keeps a distance, basically. So that's what he says. What they can do. That's what Meir says the Kohen Gadol should do. The Gemara continues. And the Mishnah then said, we go out to the gates of the city. They get out to the gates of the city. He's not allowed to follow him anymore because now there's nowhere to hide. There's no buildings or anything like that. He cannot stay far away. Therefore, he cannot go with them after they get to the gates of the city. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah said, he cannot go out at all. The Gemara says, Shaper come Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, because the pasuk says, Min hamigdash lo yetze. Don't go out of the Migdash. Don't go outside of the temple. You can't go out at all. Meir, he said, if this is so, you should be listening to it literally. Don't go out of the Beit HaMikdash. Then you should not be allowed to come out of the house either. He should not be able to go to his home. This is what it says. Don't go out of the Mikdash. Don't go out of the Kedusha of the Kohen. That's what it means. And since if you have a sign, you block away, you stay out of sight, you hide behind the building, lo aten l'migna. So Rameir holds you won't come to touch the coffin, you won't become tameh. Rabbi Yehuda says no, can't go out at all. You know why? Because a person can become emotional with grief at the passing of a relative, and even though he knows the halacha, he will come up close and he will become tameh. Therefore, Kohen Gadol, to prevent that, we don't let him go out at all. The Rambam paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, saying that a Kohen Gadol would not go out to the funeral procession at all, not even a block behind, not hiding behind the building. Okay. Kishehu menachem. And the Kohen Gadol comforts the mourners. We said that he doesn't go alone. He has some people on the side of him. Tan Rabbanon. Kishehu over b'shura. Now, I don't know. If someone told me in Eretz Yisrael, they still do the shura. The shura is, after they bury the body in the ground, the Avelim stand in a row, and people walk past them and tell them, Tenachumu min hashamayim, and they give them such things in the cemetery after they bury them. They stand in a line, and everyone walks past them. Do they do this here in America? I don't know. I don't really go to cemeteries. I don't know.
No.
They don't do that. Okay, that's what I thought. Most people don't know that. Someone said in Eretz Yisrael they were once there, and he saw them do that. So what happened was the Avelim, the mourners, would stand in a row, and people would walk past them, and each one would tell them, "Tenachum Hashem should comfort you." So now, when the Kohen Gadol would pass in the line, lenachem et achim, to comfort others, sagen umashuach she'avar b'mino. The Sagan and the Mashuach Sha'avar was at his right. Now, who's the Sagan? The Sagan is the assistant Kohen Gadol. He helps him set up the assignments. He helps them with everything that he needs in the Beit HaMikdash. Who is the Mashuach Sha'avar, the anointed one who passed? Mashuach Sha'avar was a Sagan. He was an assistant Kohen Gadol. For whatever reason, the Kohen Gadol couldn't come to the Beit HaMikdash. And they took the assistant and made him the Kohen Gadol. Now, once he became a Kohen Gadol, he cannot go back to becoming an assistant after the Kohen Gadol comes back. So what happens is he becomes what's known as a Kohen Gadol in waiting. He's a Mashuach Sha'avar. He's anointed who already passed. Now, if Chas v'Shalom something would happen to the Kohen, and again he couldn't come, he would automatically take over. So now, when the Kohen Gadol went to be Menachem Avel, someone, the Sagan, his assistant, a Mashuach Sha'avar, the person who became a Kohen Gadol and then stepped down because he just filled in, they go with him and they stand on the right. So here are the mourners. Here are the people, right, in front of the mourners. Here would be the Kohen Gadol, and on this side, on the right of him, would be the Sagan and the Mashuach Sha'avar. The Rosh Beit Av Avelim V'chol Ha'am Bismillah, and he's in the middle, and all the people are on this side, closer to the Avelim. All the people on the Rosh Beit Av, which was the head of the. Remember, the Kohanim would come once a week. They would have a 24-week cycle. Every week, another family would come. So the Rosh Beit Av, the father, the head of that family, would stand on the left of the Kohen Gadol with all the people and walk in front of the mourners. Now, he was standing as an Avel, and people would come back from him, so he wouldn't just stand alone. He would have the assistant stand over here. The Rosh Beit Av and all the people would walk on the side of him on the left. So he would be here. He would have his assistant on the right of him, and then all the people would walk on the left of him. That's where I understand the Gemara. Rosh Beit Av but the Kohen Gadol who was and then stepped down, and it will become again if the Kohen Gadol can't come to work, he doesn't come to him when the Kohen Gadol is an Avel. The actual Kohen Gadol is an Avel. The Mashuach Sha'avar, the one who became a Kohen Gadol, then stepped down and is waiting for the Kohen Gadol to not be there anymore to take back over. He doesn't come to comfort him. My Tama, what's the reason? The Kohen Gadol will see him and he'll become distressed. Why? Savar kahadebi. He would say, he's rejoicing that bad things happen to me because now he can be Kohen Gadol again and I can't be. So he was waiting for bad things to happen to me. Therefore, we don't allow him to go to be Menachem Avel because it'll give a bad taste to the Kohen Gadol. So for me, I don't know how to take it Gemara. I like to learn a lesson from it. It seems to be that certain people shouldn't go be Menachem Avel, certain people. It's going to cause a hatred or a fight or cause someone to feel worse. Maybe he should not go to be Menachem Avel, that person. You have to kind of shots it up. You kind of assess it. What's the story? Yeah.
What's the reason? If just because he goes to comfort the Avelim, why is he kind of
Mashuach Sha'avar, he's waiting for something to happen to the Kohen Gadol so he can take his place and become the Kohen Gadol. So now that the Kohen Gadol is an Avel, if he comes to be Menachem Avel him, the Kohen Gadol is going to think, this guy just loves that bad things happen to me. This way he can become Kohen Gadol. And it's going to leave a bad taste in his mouth. Therefore, we tell him not to show up. Not to be Menachem Avel.
That's in the case when a relative of a Kohen Gadol passed away? Is that the case?
Yeah, someone's coming to comfort the Kohen Gadol. Yeah, that's what we tell him. The Mashuach Sha'avar shouldn't come. Yeah. Okay. Amar Rav Papa. Shma Mina Mahamatnita Tilat. From this brayta we learned 3 points. Shma Mina Hainu Sagan Hainu Mimunet. We learned that here in the brayta it said Sagan is an assistant, and in the Mishnah it used the word Mimuneh. They're both the same person. It's used the same way. And we learn that the Avelim would stand and all the people would pass by the Avelim. Right? The Avelim would stand in one place and people would pass by them and tell them, Tenachum min hashamayim. And the mourners would stand on the left of the comforters. So here's the mourners, they're walking this way. So on their left would be the mourners. The people would walk, and on the left of the people walking are the mourners. Okay, Tanu Rabbanon. At first, the mourners would stand, and the people would walk past them and give them the Tanuchum min Hashamayim, the comfort. However, this used to be the process. And then what happened was, two families in Jerusalem started to fight. Every time someone passed away, they said, I'm going to go first, I'm going to go first, and they were fighting. So instead, so they now made a takana that the people should stand in one place and the Avelim should walk past them in order to make sure people don't fight. In Tzipori, which was a city in the Galil near Tiberias, Rabbi Yossi returned the minhag to the original. That the Avelim would stand and people would walk past them. Rami Bar Abba, and Rami Bar Abba said, "It's kin Rabbi Yossi b'Tzipori." Rabbi Yossi made a takana in Tzipori. Shelo tiyeh isha mehalechet bashuk uvana achareya meshum maaseh shehaya. When a woman is walking in the marketplace, she should have her child in front of her and not in back of her. That was the takana they made because of a story that happened. Rashi explained what was the story. The woman was walking with her child behind her, wasn't paying too much attention. Someone came and kidnapped the child. Then someone came, now she started looking for her child, realized he's missing. Someone came and says, I know where your child is. So he led her to the house where the kidnappers took the child. And as soon as she got in through the door, they jumped her and they violated her. So as such a story happened, they made a takana, don't keep your child behind you so you get kidnapped and stuff can happen to you. Keep your child in front of you so you can see it at all times so these things won't happen. Rami Bar Abba said, it's kin Rabbi Yossi b'Tzipori, that when women go to the bathroom in the outhouse that they had public outhouses, possibly they had more than one stall there that could be used. So if women went inside, they should talk loud. This way, men would know that women are inside the bathroom and they shouldn't come inside. It shouldn't be a problem of yichud. And just to agav as a side and joke, not real. I'm not meaning as serious, but maybe that's where the minhag comes. If you go to parties, you'll see like 5 women going to the bathroom at the same time. They go in a group. It's group bathroom time for them. So it seems to be coming from here that they should go together so people will know that they're there and it wouldn't be a problem of yichud. Okay. Amar Rav Menashe bar Ut. She'elit Rabbi Yoshia Rabba bebeit Olmin de Hutzal. I posed a question to Rabbi Yoshia the Great in the cemetery of Hutzal. So Amarli. Now, even though you're not allowed to learn Torah in the cemetery next to the dead people, but it's a question about that you need something right there, you're allowed to ask. Amarli, Ein Shura Pechuta Ma'asara B'nei Adam. A line, when they would do the line, where the Avelim would stand and the line would walk by, you need to have 10 people. The Ein Avelim min haminyan. And the Avelim are not considered part of the minyan. You need to have 10 without the Avelim. Ben Sha'avelim omdim, Chol Ha'am omrim. Whether the Avelim are standing and all the people will pass them. Ben Sha'avelim omrim, Chol Ha'am omdim. And whether the Avelim are walking and all the people are standing. If you're going to do the shura, the line, it needs to be done with 10 people. Kishahu mitnahem. Then when the Kohen Gadol comforts, Ebailahu, Ki menachem hu achrini heichi amalahu. What does the Kohen Gadol say when he's going to be menachem aval somebody? What do we say when we're going to be menachem aval somebody? We're going to comfort an aval. So the Gemara says, Toshma, hu omar titnahamu. He says you should be comforted. Heichi dami. It doesn't say when does he say this. Now, it has to make sense to say it when he goes to someone else. Why? If you say that when people come to comfort him, he tells them you should be comforted, then he's really giving them a curse. He's telling them you should lose someone and then become comforted. So it can't be that people are coming to him and he's saying that. Rather, it's he is going to menachem avel others. So Amr Lahu Titnahamu. So when you go to Nachanel someone, he says Titnahamu, Shema Mina. So we see from here is a good proof that you should say Titnahamu. Now we, Sefaradim, if you look in our Sidurim, what it says to say Titnahamu min Hashamayim. So yesterday I was looking this up after the Shir on Motzei Shabbat, and it's a Masechet Simachot, which is one of the smaller Masechtot, and Simachot deals with Avelus primarily. And there it says, in Perek Dalet Halacha Yud Gimel, the Avelim stand, and all the people who come to comfort them, Ben Etzel Avelim Echad Echad, Omer Lahen, they said to them, Tenachumu min Hashamayim. That's where the Sfaradim get their phrase that we say to the Avelim, Tenachumu min Hashamayim. Now, if you go to a lot of people's houses, if they when they're in Avel, you shouldn't see these things, but if we do, we see they have these signs that say Hamakom Yinachem Etchem Betoch Shari Avli Tzion VeYerushalayim. That is actually Minhag Ashkenaz. That's what they say. They use a pasuk that said Hashem should comfort you amongst the comforters of Zion. Those who need comfort in Zion, in Zion. So people just should know there's different minhagim, and you do what's the correct minhag? I don't know. What do the Bukharim do? Do they say anything at all? Or they just come and go. They say and that's it. No. Okay. Solomon, is there anything people say by Bukharians?
They say different things.
They say different things. Okay. So now we know that the actual source, the Talmudical source, is to say Tenahamu and Tenahamu min Hashamayim. It's actually found in the Siddur. If you go to the back, where they have Tzedok Hadin, where they have the Ashkava and that stuff, you'll see over there what it says to say to the Avin. Okay. And obviously, you can say anything to comfort them is also fine. But if you want to have a Talmudical source, that would be it. Now, the Mishnah said, Melech lo dan. We said a king doesn't judge, and a king cannot be judged. Now, I'm Rabbi Yosef, and I told you we learned this last week. When they said a king cannot judge and a king cannot be judged, it is only about the kings of Israel, the northern kingdom. But the kings of David line, Dan v'daninotan, they may judge and be judged. There's a pasuk that clearly says that they can be judges. Now, obviously, they have to be able to be judged, because if you cannot be judged, you cannot be a judge. Because we already learned once you're judged, you can judge others. So you cannot be a judge without judging others. Therefore, kings of David line can judge, so they must be able to be judged. What's the reason the Malchei Yisrael that they are not allowed to be judges and not be judged? Now, last week I told you from the Rambam wrote, because they were so evil that if you would try to judge them, they would do more evil. So therefore, we wouldn't judge them with knowing that they're not going to be judged ever. It would give them less of a reason to do more evil. So when they knew they're going to be judged, it's like a reverse psychology. They would be more corrupt if they're scared to be judged, because now they'll put false judges, they would bribe people, they would do a lot more evil to get around it. Now they're not going to get judged. They are not going to do as much evil. That's the way the Rambam seems to be saying. But let's see what the Gemara says. The Gemara gives an actual story that happened when it actually went into effect. When this Gezerah of Malchei Yisrael were not to be judges or be judged. So Mishum Ma'asa Shehaya, because of the Ma'asa, that happened. What's the story? The Avdei Yanai Malka Katam Nafsha. A slave of King Yanai. King Yanai, he is a king of the Hashmonaim dynasty. So we're talking second Beit HaMikdash time period, after the miracle of Hanukkah, where the Kohanim took over kingship, which was a mistake in the first place. King Yanai was one of the descendants of them. And he was married to a woman, Shlomo Tzion, or something like that, Shalom Tzion. and her brother was Shimon ben Shetach, who was the Av Bedin. He was the biggest rabbi of the time. So now King Yanai's slave killed somebody. Say again?
Pirkei Avot, I think. Shimon ben Shetach.
Yeah, Shimon ben Shetach. Right. Yes, he is the one of the Av Bedin. And listen to what happened here. He says we have to punish the slave. Shimon ben Shetach said to the Chachamim, we have to punish this slave who killed someone. They sent the message to King Yanai saying your slave killed a person. King Yanai sent the slave to the Chachamim. Do whatever you want to him. They sages sent back and saying, you got to come here too. Pasuk says, when the ox does something wrong, the owner of the ox has to come also. You have to show up here. Your property, your slave. King Yanai came, sat down. Now, this is his brother-in-law. So Shimon ben Shetach said to him, Yanai Melech, stand up, we're going to give testimony of what happened. And you're not going to stand in front of us. You're going to stand up in front of Hashem, who created the whole world. It says, before Hashem, King Yanai now said, I'm not listening to you. All these other 70 rabbis here, I want to hear what they have to say. So Shimon ben Shetach, on top of 19B1, Nifna limino. He turned to his right to see the Chachamim, what they're going to say. All the rabbis started to look down on the ground. They started to focus their mind on the ground, focusing very deeply. So then he looks to the left to see the rabbis on the left of him are going to say something. And they also started to stare at the ground very intensely. Shimon ben Shetach said, wow, all 70 chachamim, the biggest of the biggest, the best of the best. You all came big thinkers. You're all looking on the ground, thinking about the ground all of a sudden. Yeah. Hashem, who knows everybody's thoughts, should come, and he should punish you because you're scared of King Yanai. Miyad bo Gavriel, right away, Malach Gavriel came, knocked them all to the ground, and they all died. The whole Sanhedrin, except for Shimon Shetach, was killed off by Malach Gavriel right then. At that time, the other rabbis said, Melech Lodan, the king of Israel, you don't judge him, and you don't let him judge others. No testimony given about him. He cannot give testimony to anyone. Because we had the grace of the Chachamim, what we learned up until now. To get on Sanhedrin, you couldn't be flattered, you couldn't be scared. And here were the 70 people of Sanhedrin, and they all got scared of King Yanai. Nothing no one was said. They all died. But they made this gezerah. Don't get involved with the king. Don't judge him, and don't let him judge others. Yes.
Can you clarify who died?
The Chachamim, all 70 Chachamim.
Including?
Except for Shimon ben Shetach, right? Sanhedrin is 71. So all 70 members. He looked to the right at 35 of them. He looked to the left, another 35 of them. No one answered. He said, Hashem should punish you for all staring on the floor. As Kabuta, you're busy thinking about the tiles on the floor. And Malach Gabriel came and killed them all.
So he was correct in his judgment.
Shimon ben Shetach,
that means the king's supposed to come in.
Up until that point, there was no gezerah. It's this point where they made the gezerah that you do not call the king in anymore because of this. Because of this story. That's what the Gemara says. Now, thank you. And the issue with this would be, though, King Yanai, like I said, was during the second Beit HaMikdash. There's no more Malchei David, and there's no more Malchei Yisrael. Right? This is just the Chashmonaim kings. So the way the Taisus Rosh asks this, and Taisus Rosh explains that if there wasn't a King David, if there would be a Davidic king that would have taken over, he would be able to judge, but anyone else would not be able to judge or be judged, because there's a passage that clearly says the Davidic line can do that. And Taisus Rosh said also that the Nasi and the Reish Giluta, which were both from the Davidic line, they also have this capacity of able to judge and judge others, be judged and judge others. Whereas if there was any leader from non-Davidic line, they would not be able. That's the way Taisus Rosh wants to learn this incident. Okay.
Maybe they didn't want to judge because he was not of the King David's lineage. So why were they punished? Besides the fact that they were afraid, but they were under the notion that they shouldn't be judging them.
I know. So up until that point, they would judge non-Davidic kings. They would. Up until that point, they did judge non-Davidic kings.
Oh.
It's because of this story that they stopped. And they said, we don't judge any more non-Davidic kings.
So they were punished not because of judging, they were punished for
being
afraid.
Because they were scared of King Yanai to say something. Because when something's bad, you have to stand up and say something. You have to do the right thing, and they didn't do it.
But then eventually, from this, future kings were kind of, were kind of freed from being judged. You know what I mean?
Right. So not to put, right, because they're very evil, and if you would have been able to judge them, they would have been more evil. Like the Rambam learns, Pasha the Gemara learns, if you take a look at it, it seems to be like we don't want to put the Chachamim in that place again, where they're going to be scared to judge the king, and then they'll be Chayav Mitah. So we don't want to make the Chachamim in that position either. That's the way I'm understanding the Gemara. Like we don't want another 70 people in Sanhedrin all dying because they're scared to judge the king.
This is one of the main foundations of becoming a judge.
That you can't be scared, right? That's what I'm saying. They were the best of the crop. These were not Stam people. These were Sanhedrin members. So you see how much scared they were. I mean, it's a pachad. King Yana, he also fought a lot with the Chachamim, right? With the Rabbanim. He liked the Tzedokim instead, the Tzdukim, the ones the first reformers and stuff like that. Yeah, so he was on their side for a while. A lot of it, he actually went and searched out for Chachamim to kill them, right? Shimon ben Shetach had to hide until he needed to do how to do Bekat Hamazon, and then his sister said, "Okay, if I bring you a rabbi, you won't kill him." Then she brought out her brother. It's a whole story there. It wasn't a damn simple time. It wasn't the greatest of guys. It was what to be scared of. But that's the story. Yeah.
After this incident, who made the takana that the future kings should not be judged? Was it Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach, or it was a group?
It says in the Gemara, Ba'ota Sha'a Omru. At that time they said, the article brings in brackets, sages, Chachamim. I don't know where they got that from. But that Omru, I guess Omru means they.
I said 2 hours, I said 1 hour out.
It doesn't say...
That's 1 hour, yeah.
Okay. Fine, let's move on. Lo cholet v'lo choltzin. A king cannot do chalitza to his brother's almana, and no one can do chalitza to his almana. Okay? So if the king had a wife and she didn't have children, no one can do chalitza for her, and he cannot do chalitza to his brother's wife. It's embarrassing for the king. It's not kavod for him to do this. The Gemara says, like Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, that he could. The king could do it. The Gemara says, any is true. I'm Rav Ashi. We said that a nasi who is mochal his kavod, we say his kavod is machul. En kavodo malach shemachal kavodo en kavodo machul. But if a king says it's okay, you don't have to honor me, that doesn't work. Shnamar, because it says Tom tasim alecha melech. Put on yourself a king. Shetieh emato alecha. That the fear of the king has to be on you. So how can Yehuda say that a king can be mochel his kavod and do chalitza? According to Yehuda, mitzvah shani. When it comes to mitzvah, it's different because it's a mitzvah of chalitza. He would be allowed to be mochel his kavod, according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Tanna Kama, that's not the case. He can never do it. Then it says, "Ve'eno sin," and a woman may not marry a king's widow. A king cannot marry another king's widow, right? And in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said, "What do you mean?" We have a pasuk that says that David HaMelech took the woman of Shaul HaMelech's palace. Shaul died. David HaMelech took the woman, meaning that he took his wife. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda. No, it's not that he took Shaul's wife. Nashim hariyot lo bibet HaMelech. He took the women that were allowed to him. Uman ninhu. And who were these women? Meirav uMichal. He took Meirav and Michal. Who's Meirav and who's Michal? They're both sisters. They're daughters of Shaul HaMelech. Both Meirav and Michal are sisters of Shaul HaMelech. Now, Mara's question is, yeah.
Michal was the daughter of Shaul HaMelech, no?
Yeah, daughters, sisters. They're sisters. Meirav and Michal are sisters, daughters of Shaul HaMelech. Okay. Now, Shalut. Yes, Stalin, your question?
Yeah. I need you to put in the context now. So that means he was married to Mirav first.
Oh, so that's exactly the next Gemara. Hold on.
Okay, hold on. Go back a little bit. In the idea here, so the king cannot, if he dies, his wives cannot do halitza.
Right, that's the time to come.
Cannot get remarried.
Cannot get remarried.
So they end up being by themselves.
Yeah.
And the king cannot marry a widow, correct? Is that what you're telling us?
Right. Yeah. King cannot marry even another king's widow.
That was one of the reasons why King David did not marry that last girl when he was dying, when he was cold.
Yeah.
He was brought a beautiful girl.
Right.
He was brought. So one of the reasons he didn't marry her, if he was gonna die, she was gonna be left all alone for life. He didn't want to ruin his life.
He didn't want to ruin her prospects. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good one. Wow.
Yeah.
Where did you hear that one? That actually makes a lot of sense. Where did you hear that one?
I don't know. One of the rabbis was saying it a long time ago.
We're going to have that actually coming up on Daf Chav Bet. In about 3 dafim, we're going to learn about her, as Avishag, who wanted to marry David. She said, "Oh, you're probably old and weak, and therefore you don't want to marry me because you can't take care of a young woman like me." And then he proved that he wasn't old or whatever. He wasn't weak. Right. So that Gemara is coming up. But that's a nice shot the way you said it. It makes a lot of sense.
Not technically true.
So what's not true?
What you said.
That what?
Even though David did not touch her, she's still not allowed to get married to anyone else.
Because she was for the king?
Yes.
She was never married. She wasn't married to him.
Yes, I know, but she becomes the property of a king, I think.
I don't know. We'll see. When we get to that Gemara, Mrs. Hashem, we'll get into it. Let's just go through this Gemara. Let's go through this Gemara. Now, Meirav and Micha. So Shaul Talmidav Rabbi Yossi, He'ach nasa David shtei achiot b'cheihen. How did David HaMelech marry 2 sisters in their lifetime? And don't tell me the Torah wasn't given yet, like by Yaakov, right? He has 2 sisters here, then he's married. So Amrlan, he said, Michal achar mitat Meirav nasa'a. First he married Meirav. Meirav died, then he married Michal. That's one opinion. That's one opinion. That's Rabbi Yossi. Okay? Now Yeshua ben Karcha says no. There's a different story that happened here. Kiddushay ta'ut hayulu b'Meirav. When David HaMelech married or tried to marry Meirav, the kiddushin was mistaken. It wasn't a good kiddushin. It wasn't chal. Kiddushin didn't hold. The kiddushin that he did was incorrect. What happened? Shinema, how do we know this for a fact? Shinema, because it says David HaMelech tells Shaul, "Tena et ishti et Michal asher erasti li b'mea arolot pilishtim." Give me Michal, my wife, who I got from the 100 foreskins of the Pilishtim that I killed. That's what David HaMelech said. So what's the proof here? My Talmudah, Amra Papa, Michal Ishti. He said, Michal is my wife. Below Meirav Ishti. And Meirav is not my wife. Now, how could it be that Meirav is not his wife? My Kiddushay Ta'ut. What happened with Meirav? What was the mistake in the Kiddushin? And it says, Vayaha Ish Asher Yekeni. Ya'asherenu HaMelech Osher Gadol. When Goliath was making trouble for the Jews, Shaul said, whoever kills Goliath, I will give him a lot of money, and I'll give him my daughter. And his daughter at that time was Meirav. That was the daughter he was going to give, Meirav. So also, Katle, the Melech went, and he killed Goliath. So Amr Loi, Milva et lach gabai. V'hamakadosh b'milva enu mekudeshet. What happened? David HaMelech came back, and he said to Shaul HaMelech, you owe me money. You promised you're going to give me money. I'm mochel that money. I want to use that money to Mikadesh Meirav. So Meirav was young at the time, that his father can take Kedushin for her. So what David Melech did, he was mochel a debt. He forgave a debt. In order, not going to go through whole Masechet Kedushin, but on the surface level, in order for Kedushin to happen, you actually have to give something to the person or to the father. You cannot forgive a loan. Forgiving a loan is not considered giving something that's worth a pruta in order to Kedushin to fall. The David HaMelech came and said, this was a mistake. He said, I want to make Kaddish Meirav, so the money you owe me, I forgive you, and that's going to be used as the Kiddushin. And the Mekadesh b'milva, person who was Mekadesh with a loan, by forgiving a loan, Einu Mekudeshet, Azal Yahava Adriel. So Shaul went and gave Meirav to another person, Adriel. Dichtiva, he be'etet et Meirav, but Shaul le David, he gave a Meirav who was supposed to be for David, she was given to Adriel. The pasuk continues. So Amar le, Shaul then said to David, okay, eten lach Michal. Now, if you want my other daughter, Michal, Zil, ateli me'at oralot Philistine. Go kill 100 Philistine and bring me their oralot, their foreskin. Bring them to me. So Azul le. David went and brought it to Shaul. Amr le, Shaul said to him, so he promised him money and Michal at this point. So Amr Shaul said to him, Milva upruta etlach gabai. Shaul savar milva pruta date al milva. David savar milva pruta date al pruta. And now what happened? Shaul, David came with 100 oralot. And he said, I forgive you on the loan and give me Michal as my wife. So Shaul said, okay, you gave me, forgive my loan. That doesn't work. You also gave me 100 oralot. Maybe that's worth a pruta. Maybe that's worth amount of money. Maybe it should work. But Shaul held, if you give someone a forgiveness of a loan and you give them a pruta, the person's mind who's doing it is on the loan and not on the pruta. And if it's only on the loan and not on the pruta, then she's not mekadesh. Therefore, Shaul held, since David HaMelech forgive the loan, he's doing it on the loan, and therefore she's not married to David. David said, no, milva, pruta. I know milva doesn't work. I'm forgetting the loan. I don't need the money. I just want to use the pruta to be mekadesh Michal, and therefore David HaMelech held that he was married to Michal. Or you want to say better, the kuli alma milva pruta da'atea pruta. That really everyone holds that if you have a milva and a pruta, the mind is on the pruta. Even Shaul. But Shaul savar lo chazu v'lo mideh. 100 oralot is not worth anything. That's what Shaul said. What am I do with 100 foreskins? It's not worth anything. Not even worth a pruta. The David savar chazu l'chaveh v'shunrei. No, you can give the foreskins to cats and dogs to eat. Therefore, it can be considered a pruta, and therefore I am married to Michal. So this is your two opinions. One opinion is that David HaMelech was married to Meirav. That's what Yossi. He was married to Meirav. Then Meirav died and he married Michal. Other opinion is he tried to marry Meirav, didn't work because he did it on a loan. And then he married Michal with the 100 oralot, 100 foreskins of the Philistine. That's the two opinions. Now, According to Rabbi Yossi, who says, you have a question, Brian, before we move on? Yeah.
So first off, if he needs to pay her to get married to Meirav or Michal, in that case, Shaul was supposed to pay him for killing the Goliath and then on. Why and all the debt or the loan just take that money and from that give a part to buy it?
You asked me a question on the story, but that's the way the story happened. I don't know what to tell you. That's the way it would have been. It would have made a lot more sense to do that, but that's not what happened.
Okay, and then the idea with Michal, why did he need the foreskins in the first place? The 100
foreskins. That's what Shaul said. Bring me back 100 foreskins of the Philistines.
They're not worth anything.
That's what Shaul thought. David said it is worth. It can be given to cats and dogs. Therefore, I did give a pruta. Yeah.
So the marriage on Michal is also invalid?
No.
Or partially invalid?
According to David and according to Halacha, the marriage to Michal was a valid marriage. According to Shaul, who was contrary to Halacha, it wasn't a valid marriage. That's why he went ahead and gave it to Palti. And we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a little bit more to go. I don't know if we're going to get there in time, so maybe we will. Just let's go through a little more. Now, Rabbi Yossi held that first he was married to Meirav, then he was married to Michal. So what does he do with the pasuk that says, Rabbi Yossi, hi tana et ishti et Michal, my darishbeh? When it says, give me my wife Michal, what does that mean? Because we want to say, give my wife Michal, Michal's my wife, and Meirav is not, but both were his wives. So what does it mean? Rabbi Yossi l'tameh. The Tanya, Rabbi Yossi going to his reasoning, he learns Rabbi Yossi darish mikraot mo'oravin. He would see different sukkim in different places. He would mix and match them to make you a solid story. So what would he do? Ketiv, it says, and the 5 sons of Michal, who she got from Adriel. 1 second. Bechila Adriel Netana. Did Shaul give Michal to Adriel? V'halo lepalti ben Laish Netana. He gave Michal to Palti ben Laish. Why does the pasuk say Adriel? So the chtiv Shaul Natan et Michal bito Eshe David. Shaul gave Michal his daughter, the wife of David, lepalti ben Laish. Ela. Makish kuche Meirav LaAdriel. The Kiddushei Michal LaPalti. Mad Kiddushei Michal LaPalti Ba'avera. Ab Kiddushei Meirav LaAdriel Ba'avera. According to Rabbi Yossi, David HaMelech was married to both, to Meirav and Michal. And the reason why it says Michal was given to Adriel to teach you, just as when Michal was given to Palti, it was done be'Isser, so too when Meirav was given to Adriel, it was done be'Isser also. According to Rabbi Yossi, Meirav was married to David, and therefore when Shaul gave Meirav to Adriel, that was an Isser, that was wrong. And when he gave Michal to Palti, that was also wrong. That's the way Rabbi Yossi learned. Ashur ben Karchanami, it says that Michal had 5 sons. Can that be? Michal had no children. Did Michal give birth? Meirav Yalda. Meirav gave birth. Meirav had 5 sons to Adriel. Meirav Yalda, Michal Gidila. Meirav gave birth, but she died, and Michal raised them. Lefikach nikru al shema. Therefore, they're called under Michal's name. Anyone who raises an orphan in his house, as if he raised them. So Michal raised her sister's kids, 5 of them. So it's as if they were her kids. However, Michal never had any children according to this opinion. Chanina, says not only when the mother dies, look at here, coming up Shavuot, the Gilad Rut, but Tikra lo Hashechinot. Sham Leshem Lemor Yulad Ben LeNaomi. And they said that Naomi had a child. Naomi Yelda, did Naomi give birth? Ela Ruth Yelda, Ben Naomi Gidila. That Ruth gave birth, and Naomi helped raise the baby. Therefore, they called her under Naomi's name. So even though Ruth was alive, but Boaz, the father, died, and Naomi stepped in to help, the children are also called in Naomi's name.
Helping and subbing for the mothers, that's not the same level though. Because they died. And
Boaz died.
Boaz died, but Ruth was still alive.
Ruth is stepping in to help. Naomi Gidla, Naomi was raising. Therefore, you see, even in the first case, Meirav died and Michal took over. Definitely considered the mother. But we see, even when the mother is still alive and someone else is helping to raise it, also considered as if their child. Further, the Ishto HaYehudiyah Yalda et Yered Avi Gidor, and then he continues and saying, and these are the children of Bitya, Bat Paro Asher Lekach Lo Me'ared. Mared took Bitya, the daughter of Paro, and she had Chever, Socho, Yekutiel, Zena'ach. This is all Moshe Rabbeinu's names. So first of all, it says Mered, Zek Kaled. Mered is Kaled. Why would he call Mered? Mered is a rebel. He went against the Meraglim. The Meraglim wanted to say one thing, and he rebelled against the spies to say the truth that Yisrael was good. Now it says here that Bitya gave birth to Yekutiel, to Chever, to Yered. Some of the names of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 names, and but Bitya Yelda, did Bitya give birth to Moshe? V'alo Yocheved Yelda, Yocheved gave birth to Moshe. Ela Yocheved Yelda uBitya Gidela. So even though Yocheved and Amram were both alive, but Bitya got involved with raising Moshe, it's considered her child. It says in Pasuk and Tehillim that with a powerful arm you redeem your people, the children of Yaakov and Yosef. Did Yosef give birth to the Jewish people? Yaakov Yalad. Yaakov gave birth to the Jewish people. Yaakov Yalad, the Yosef Kilkel. Yaakov gave birth and Yosef fed them. If you just feed someone else's child, it's as if it's your child. So you see, person's alive, he's there, he's involved, but you help out, you're also considered your child. Look at the next Gemara, and that's where we're going to end off. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yonatan, Kol hamilamed ben chaverot Torah, whoever teaches his Torah to the son of his friend, Maleh alav katu kilu yado, it's as if he gave birth to him. Shenemar, as it says, ve'ela toldot Aharon u'Moshe, uchteh ve'ela shemot bnei Aharon, Omar lecha, Aharon yalad u'Moshe limed. These are the children of Moshe. Aaron only mentions Aaron's children to tell you. These are Aaron's children he gave birth, but Moshe taught them. Lefikach nekra al shemo. Therefore, they're called under Moshe Rabbeinu as well. Anybody who teaches someone else Torah, as if he's their father, and therefore they're considered under his name. And this is where we'll end for this week. Okay, any questions at this point? Some interesting Gemarot. I think the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty interesting. David, Shaul, and stuff like this. We'll come back to these things as well. Okay.
If at the moment of giving up Michal and Merav, right?
Yeah, Merav and Michal, yeah, sister.
If the moment the king is Shaul, why are we making a decision based on David's opinion of the judgment? You know what I mean? Because at that moment, Shaul was still a king.
It's not per se judgment, it's the halacha. Shaul made a mistake in halacha. Shaul said that the Kaddish al Milva Pruta, it's only on the Milva, it's not on the Pruta. That's not the right halacha. It's the wrong halacha. And he was learning up the wrong way. Yeah, it's nothing to do with their opinion. It's to do with what the actual halacha was at that time. Right? All the time. What the halacha is. Yeah.
Okay, because the idea then could be connected to Moabit, and all that. You know what I mean? That's why. So, and that's where David Amir also was saying that we do accept the ladies from Moab, but not the men.
Right.
Also, there was a contradiction between two.
Okay, where does that plug in here?
Because again, here the Shaul's opinion and David's opinion are different. So how come halacha follows David?
No, the
each and
halacha
every
wasn't
time?
already set. The halacha wasn't already set at that time. Shaul just made a
Was
mistake.
not or was?
Was set. Shaul just made a mistake. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Anything else? So we're good. Everyone has their plans, I'm sure, for Memorial Day. Baruch Hashem. I know they're all going to be spending it preparing for Shavuot. Be'ezat
Are you
Hashem.
going to be around our area or no?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm going to be there tonight, Be'ezat Hashem, for the Askara.